Hey everybody, if you don't know me already, I'm Tim Gowling, a professional wedding and lifestyle photographer based out of Eastern Ontario. This summer, I'm flying to England and Spain with my wife and 3 kids. And for the first time in years, I'm considering about leaving my professional cameras at home. Instead, I've been looking into the Fujifilm X-T4 as a travel camera. But I'm still not quite sure if it's the right move to make. Equipment can vary depending on the situation that I'm photographing. If I'm photographing a wedding, I have a video that I just recorded with a link down in the description. And with that equipment, I take light stands, a rolling suitcase, and a satchel. So it's quite a lot of equipment to bring. Quite often when I'm camping, I will bring I'll pare it down, but the equipment is still pretty heavy. So quite often I travel with a bag like this, and this bag you haven't seen yet, and it's an old low pro AW 400. It's a flip side. It's a flip side 400 AW where you can wear it on your waist and open it up. And it's done a good job over the years. So quite often when I'm traveling, I like to wind down and take wildlife pictures. Taking wildlife pictures is the hobby side of this business for me. It helps, a bit of R&R, a bit of relaxation. So the equipment I take is still fairly heavy. And depending on where I'm traveling to, I will still take either a rolling case with this equipment in, or that satchel. If I'm camping, I'll bring both because the rolling case provides protection in vehicle collisions if we're camping or if I'm flying. So this is what I have, like some sample equipment that I have laid out. So this equipment is what I would normally bring, if I intend to take wildlife pictures, whilst camping or flying. So I typically bring a 120-300 2.8 with an R3, a 24-70, and this is a really old, I should really replace this, but this is great for, candid images of the kids and stuff. So I'll bring like a 50mm 1.4, an old one, image quality, not great wide open, but for family pictures, it's good. It's good. It's an old lens. I'd like to replace it. I don't use it for work. A teleconverter. I have an 85 prime beforehand. This lens is fairly new. I got it last year. So again, I'd take the old Sigma EF 85 if I had space, and a speed light. So this equipment, I would jam pack in that 400 AW. Probably not the 85. It might be a bit of a tight squeeze depending. But this stuff is typically what I'd bring if I'm going on a family vacation, camping, and I intend to take wildlife pictures. So this stuff can be pretty heavy and cumbersome. And then with my wedding equipment, if I'm going away on vacation, like last year I went to England and I had a couple of photo shoots lined up whilst I was in can't get my words out today, in England. So I took a rolling case, I took this whopping great lens, teleconverter, I took a 24-70 and an 85 and 2 speed lights and a monopod. So it's heavy equipment to travel with. And then that last trip, I was traveling by my own. So as you can see, and if you do shoot full frame or even crop sensor cameras and you're using full frame wildlife lenses of a wide aperture, your equipment, it becomes heavy very quickly. Not only is this equipment heavy, it's also pretty expensive equipment. And traveling by your own, if you're planning your locations that you're going to go to, you shouldn't have to worry too much about, the expense of your equipment. But when you don't know, then it can be a bit more stressful. So Like quite often last time, you know, when I travel to England, I'm not a tourist. I came from there. So I know where I'm going when I get there. But this time when I'm traveling with my family, we do intend to hit those tourist spots. The problem I'm facing is traveling with this equipment through an airport with my 3 kids, you know, traveling in, you know, going through security alone with all this professional equipment. I always get stopped. They always swab your cameras. Sometimes they ask questions. I've never had a problem traveling with my professional equipment, but I don't want to, when I have to manage my 3 young children, even though I have my wife there, I want to be able to help. I'm going to be distracted with my 3 kids. Now, this would probably be a very different story if my kids were in their teenage years, but I have 3 kids that are all under 10, with the oldest, you know, getting closer to 10 and the youngest is still a toddler. So it's already going to be busy and stressful going through security. And do I really want to add an extra layer of complexity? I will still be traveling with my MacBook Air, and quite often, sometimes with, you know, it's changing now. They used to always want you to take your laptop out the bag. Now they, depending on where you go, they don't. So that makes going with a laptop a lot easier than what it used to be, especially now that they're so thin and lightweight to travel with. As I'm traveling with the 3 kids, I've also got to think about weight too, because our carry-on, even though we can have a carry-on per kid, it's not smart to travel with children that can't carry their own carry-on. So our carry-on is probably going to be more dedicated towards the children. So having a carry-on that's dedicated to lots of camera equipment, then that becomes, you know, a bit more problematic. And then there's the risk of theft as well. With my rolling bag, I can lock it to items and stuff and places and hotels. And I'll probably still do that for my laptop. I'll probably still intend to bring my Think Tank international version too. But I'll be able to have other more personal items inside of it instead of my camera equipment. But when we're out in public areas, so we fully intend to do the touristy things in London, stuff that I haven't done since I was a little kid. I don't want to make us more of a target or tourist target than we already will be looking like, if you guys catch my drift. I know London can be safe, but I grew up around that area, so I know how unsafe it can be. So to try and reduce the risk of theft or running into any problems, especially on the tube or even in Spain, I want to be able to reduce our risk for a target of theft or crime as much as possible. So what's drawing me to get the Fujifilm X-T4 over even other Fujifilm cameras, you know, in the XH2 series, or the H. I'm not completely, you know, I'm not au fait with all their different lines, but I know they have the XT line, which is a weather sealed line, and then they have the XH or the S. I don't know, X. I don't know, the one above it with the LCD panel on the top, which I love. I love cameras that have the LCD panel on the top, which is why I can't even myself consider an R6, because that's the way I've always worked. But let's not get into that right now. What is drawing me into this, the X-T4 specifically, you know, it has, from what I've heard on forums and on other people, it does have slightly better, faster and more accurate autofocus than their newer X-T5. And quite often, you know, I'm always drawn to the latest model. You know, I have an R5, not the 2, and I have the R3, not the R1. And there's many reasons why I chose the R3 over the R1. But what specifically drew me to the X-T4 is that it has these classic controls. And I love my old film cameras. I have quite a few behind me. And I don't often, it came to a point where I was thinking in this debate, I'm like, do I just bring a film camera with me on this trip, this vacation, and just use film? I want guaranteed results. And I'd say that all my results that I've seen from my own film pictures, they're all good. They're all perfectly fine. I could use them for client work if I really wanted to. However, I want something that I can, I don't know, just being digital. But it did occur to me, why don't I just take a few of my old film cameras? And I could still do that, but I really like the classic retro look of the X-T4 and the other X-T series line cameras as well. However, what really brought me to the X-T4 as the contender to bring on vacation is not only it has the classic look, but the tilty flippy screen at the back. You can flip it around, and on the back of it, it's textured like an old film camera, which I was looking at was it the X100? The one with the it was the X Pro 3. I was looking at the X Pro 3. It has the same kind of film look on the back, and I'm like, I've never shot a rangefinder. Do I look at getting a rangefinder? But what turned me off from the X Pro 3 is that you can't flip the screen all the way around, so I don't have the option of having the screen, and also reliability of getting parts for the top plate and the cover. I've heard people saying the cover for the EVF and OVF, it gets jammed. So that ruled it out for me, because I want a camera that I can use long term. And if it's going to cause me problems like that, I don't want it. So the Fujifilm, that's what brought me to the X-T4, where you can turn the rear LCD screen around and hide it like a film camera. I can hide this camera whilst being out in public to almost looking like a film camera. I could even cover up the Fujifilm name with some tape. And from a distance, people might just look at it and go, oh, it's just an old film camera. Might not be worth very much. And that reduces my target. Not only it has this classic setup to it, but it's also going to be lighter weight than my full frame cameras. It's going to have a smaller body. It will be lighter in that body, and the lenses are also lighter too, depending on which lenses you get. Now, for this trip, I was envisaging maybe even just bringing 1 or 2 primes. I wanted to start out with the 23mm 1.4 WR lens. So it's weather sealed just like the body. So I can have it around my shoulder, like around my neck, or around like this way. And it gets a bit of rain on it, and I'm holding umbrellas for kids and all that. I don't have to worry about it immediately dying when it gets covered in water or rain. And it's not going to be whilst having it on my shoulders, like for all day, like going on the train down to London. It reduces my risk of being mugged. I can have a camera that looks old, but isn't. And I can take those candid memories of my children and my wife without having to worry that I'm going to get robbed. And it's small enough that I can just keep on me and capture those candid moments, because otherwise I'd be just using my cell phone, and iPhones are a particular target of theft in Europe, so keeping that hidden would be, I'm more likely to get robbed if I have my cell phone out, or like one of my big Canon cameras out. So this is what's really driving this, is safety. And having a big full frame camera on you and out on the tube and stuff, it's bigger, it's more likely to get damaged, and I'm less likely to pull that camera out and take those pictures, because it'll be in a bag and not just slinging around my waist, because my Canon cameras are my pride. I'm gonna be less inclined. I want to be more inclined to take those pictures, not with a cell phone, but with an actual camera, to keep those memories forever. I've heard many times people say, oh, the Fujifilm colors and like, oh, the JPEG filters. I haven't shot JPEG in so many years, like years and years, apart from if it's on my cell phone. It's been, gosh, I don't know. I've shot on raw format since forever. I have raw formats, pictures going back 20 years. For me to now start using the JPEGs was probably not going to happen for me. I might use them as like an, shoot raw and JPEG, but I don't know, we'll see how we go. Maybe I'll shoot both, raw and JPEG, which is something that I still have never done. But we'll see. That I can change, I think. I'm not that old, that stuck in my ways. But I've heard lots of people talk about the Fujifilm colors and how their skin tones are really nice. And I don't know, I've looked at the pictures online and then I compare them to my own pictures and I'm still like, I still prefer the Canon colors. Shooting in RAW and trying to bring those colors back to where I feel comfortable is probably where I'm going to be at. But, I might explore a little bit, maybe, probably not, but we'll see. We can see. By going through all of this process, I want to, I always have fun with my cameras shooting. When we have our normal vacations, I'll bring my camera out and we'll go to the park and stuff and, have pictures. But, I won't be, what I normally don't do on vacations is like, say, if we're going off to the beach. Actually, no, I do bring my cameras to the beach, but only on, certain times. But if we're like, going out to the shops or, exploring areas. Normally, I wouldn't bring my professional camera with me, like an R3 or my R5. Normally, I save that for specific times, and I want to change that. I want to be able to, bring a smaller, lighter camera that's still worthy of being, because people use these cameras for weddings. So I already know that these cameras are good cameras. I want to be able to bring it out and, oh, my kid's looking at something and I see a picture. I just want to pick it up from a halter and not a halter. That's weird. A shoulder strap or something that I'm wearing and, snap a couple of pictures of my kids exploring their environment. And that's not something I generally do out and about because, I have 3 kids. It's busy. Anyone with 3 kids, young kids, will know how crazy it is. And it's a fun crazy, don't get me wrong, but I want to increase my opportunities for taking pictures candidly with my family. And that's what is really attractive in the X-T4, is that it has a screen that can turn around and flip and you can hide the rear LCD panel. It's an older body, so I'm looking at, it's going to be a used camera at this point. I'll probably pick it off Marketplace. Yeah, I could cover it underneath my business insurance if something did happen to it away on vacation, but the cost of it won't be worth the deductible. And I'm going in wedding season too. I forgot all about this. I'm going in wedding season, like end of August. If something happened to my main work equipment whilst I'm away on vacation, and I'm coming back, I'm going to have to scramble to order stuff and get it ready for weddings coming up. And that's a layer of stress that I don't want. All of these considered, this is what is really drawing me in to buying a Fujifilm crop sensor camera, like, the X-T4, very specifically the Fujifilm X-T4, because it has all these things going for it. As much as cool as the X-T5 is, with its higher megapixel sensor, which unfortunately does, it would bring in more noise at high ISOs, which is, I love the 24, I love my R3, the 24 megapixel size, compared to my R5, which has the 45 megapixel size. That 24 megapixel size is perfect for large amounts of files. The dynamic range from that too. Now, I know the crop sensor camera of the Fuji will not have the same dynamic range as a full frame sensor, but it's not rammed full of megapixels on the small sensor. So it's going to have more dynamic range, say the X-T5. From my own personal thoughts, I haven't read reviews on that, but you can just tell with modern day technology that they're all going to be, you know, pretty similar. But I don't need 40 megapixels for a travel camera. And another thing that turned, you know, like I said, with the tilty flippy screen, the X-T5, it doesn't, you can't turn it around to face you, so there's no selfies. You can't flip it around to hide the rear LCD panel from people that go, oh, look, that's an expensive camera, to, oh, is that a film camera? It makes people question, is that a film camera? You know, so this decision is all about risk mitigation and risk assessment. With all this set aside, at the end of the day, do I really need another camera? Because I could take an old 5D Mark III, but again, it's big and cumbersome. It's just probably, you know, people might mistake it for a 5D Mark IV, or they just go, big camera, lots of money. Will I still use it after this trip? And I'd like to hope I'd say yes. You never know. I might be taking it out more often than my Canon cameras. Not because I don't love taking my Canon cameras out, because I do, but because of the size, I could just throw it in the glove box of my vehicle. And, you know, I'm not looking to preserve this camera. It's probably going to get beat to hell carrying it around without a camera bag. But, you know, I'm okay with that. I would like to say yes, that I would like to continue using it after this trip. It will probably just live in my my cupboard behind me for most of the time. I don't know. We'll really have to see if I, you know, really push to get it. And push, I mean, it's like this internal battle of like, do I take a camera that's not something that I would normally take? You know, do I, you know, it's almost going to break my heart a little bit by not taking one of my Canon cameras, because like I said, I have always taken those cameras. You know, I could just take like my R5 and take the grip off it to make it lighter, you know, carry a couple of batteries with me and a prime lens. I could, you know, I have my 35 1.4 VCM, but even still, you're starting to get into like larger territory by length, and it could get knocked off something and damaged. If I damage the Fujifilm, oh, big whoop. I damaged it. I haven't damaged something that I use to make my money with. And then you could say, well, why don't you take one of the smaller 1.8 primes? And I'm like, yes, I could, and that would make the profile of the camera a lot smaller. Because, you know, they have like, I have that 16mm 2.8 lens from in the RF line, and that's really itty bitty, and it's kind of cute, and I take it out and people will go, oh, that's, you know, it looks cute. And I could do that, for sure I could. But then it's not weather sealed. And that kind of goes with the debate of, well, if I'm out and about and it starts raining and I've got the kids and stuff, I don't want to be like lugging a satchel with a camera bag in it and then trying to protect that from the rain. I just want to be able to wear this camera. If it rains, I can stick it in a rain jacket, or if it gets a little bit wet, doesn't matter. You know, I have my wife and 3 kids to look after. So protecting this camera is not going to be at the top of my list. It's going to be like here, probably, and, you know, as it should be. Having those cheaper RF lenses, even though it makes the profile of the camera smaller, so I could take like the R5 with no battery grip, which is something that it's going to be weird shooting the Fujifilm without a battery grip. It has the same feel, and it has the dials as a film camera, and I love using my film camera, so, you know, well, I think it'll be okay without a grip. So, you know, an R5 without the battery grip. I could even go down to an R8, but again, I want something that's weather sealed. And that brings it down to it. It's like, if I start going into the smaller Canon lineup with smaller lenses or smaller bodies, you know, they might not have dual memory card slots, and they won't be weather sealed, where I could have something of similar size with the Fujifilm and a prime lens. It would be weather sealed, you know, weather resistant. I've had, you know, they do the same thing with Canon equipment. I've had pouring rain on my equipment. I should take a microfiber cloth, wipe it off, do what I can to keep it out of the rain, but at the end of the day, yeah. People will be like, no, you don't look after your equipment. I do look after my equipment. It's a work tool. I don't know, I just want something that is smaller, weather sealed, and I can still take great pictures, reducing my risk of being robbed because it looks old, but it behaves new. And I might even bring more than one lens. You know, like maybe not the 56 that they have, the 1.4. I mean, maybe the 35. So the 35mm focal length and the 85 are like my two favorite focal lengths. So you could get the 23mm 1.4 Fuji and then the 56mm Fuji, and that's the same equivalent looking images without the same background separation. Now the background separation is still going to be nice, but it's not, when you get into full frame, it's not the same. But you can get like the same kind of looking images, you know, with those kind of focal lengths. It has an equivalent looking image. Or do I go for something that's like a 24mm focal length equivalent and a 50mm focal length equivalent? Or do I go for a 35 and a 50mm focal length equivalent? So I have like semi-wide and like flexible portrait. I still use the 35mm focal length for portraits anyway, so even closer up ones too. So I might even only just bring one lens. And if I'm going to like somewhere on the train for the day, I'm not going to have the choice of probably bringing more than one lens unless I stick another lens in a diaper bag. You know, that's where it lives. But yeah, it just keeps it simple. You know, a camera that doesn't look good. Well, it does look good, but that's what I do. It does look good. It looks retro, and it kind of appeals to me because I like my film cameras. Having one camera, one lens, nice and simple. I can, you know, capture these memories of my family because my wife has never been to England. I grew up there, so I want to be able to do these touristy things with my family and have a great time and not have to worry about my professional equipment. But if you guys were in my position, what would you guys do? Like, I'm interested to know what you guys are, your guys is my followers or anyone who pops across this video would do in this situation. You know, maybe weather sealing isn't a priority to you. I mean, it is to me because I'm used to it, and the scenarios that I'm going into, if I'm not traveling with a camera bag, I'm not inclined to have a camera that's not weather sealed and then go, oh, it's raining, oh no, my camera. I don't want to get fucking about that. Maybe you guys, weather sealing isn't important to you guys. I would like to know that if you were traveling with your family, would you guys bring your professional equipment with you? It all comes down to personal preferences, and I really want to know if you guys what your guys' opinion is and what you guys would do in the same position after everything is laid out. How would you guys feel? So please, I'd really appreciate you guys, got back to me on that and, commented. What are my next steps? Well, it's an X-T4, buying new is going to be more limited because it is a discontinued camera, because obviously they're pushing their latest line of cameras. What is going to be next? Well, I've been, looking on Facebook marketplaces. I could look at Henry's, but I don't know, I've heard some things about that. I could go to KEH and buy a used Fujifilm X-T4. However, I'm a fan of keeping things local, so I'm going to see if I can find one off marketplace. There are a couple of contenders, a few that I've messaged and talked to a few, and they are, contenders. And what's kind of held me back lately is wedding booking season. It's been, 2026 has been an odd year. I have wedding clients booked from last year for this year, but normally when February opens up, people are recovered from Christmas, I usually get a bunch of inquiries. And I did get a bunch of inquiries, and this has been talked about quite often, is like ghosting season, is ghosting from potential clients is at an all-time high. So normally, like, I book out the majority of my year in February and March, like kind of early March, and then I get a few stragglers, April, May, and that hasn't been the case this year. Like, I've booked, a couple, and nowhere near what I should be booking. I don't know whether or not people are just holding off because of the economy, or, they're just waiting until a few months out to then seek wedding photographers. I'm going to be fine regardless. Like, I'll make it through this year. It will suck if I don't fill out my year, but I'll be able to recover and stay in business long term. I'll just be twiddling my thumbs, and I'll probably find alternative projects to do. This is the reason why I don't have a camera in my hands right now, is because of wedding booking season. Now, I'm not worried like I am, like, a bit on the edge of the fence here, but I'm not going to worry that this season's going to be terrible for booking until May, because that's typically when people stop booking, and then you start getting bookings for the next year, I find, for my personal business, in like September, October, when you're normally slammed with weddings as well. So you're booking people for the following year, doing engagement shoots and doing weddings, all in the same time period. Is very, very chaotic. I think I'm going to hold off until May to then purchase this camera. So we'll be doing a follow-up video in the future to update you guys to see what I bring with me on this trip to Europe. Anyway, guys, if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate if you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to hear from you guys and your feedback. And you guys have a great day.